honored Rabbanim, the Rabbi, all of the distinguished program speakers, and all who have gathered here in tribute to our father, I'd like to take this moment on behalf of my mother and all of my siblings to sincerely thank you for participating in this Zachreinu L'Chaim, the day of remembrance and tribute to our Harav Chaim in these very auspicious Aseres Yemei Tshuva. In the schus of your joining with us today, may He on high be the good to better on your behalf, to be granted the Gemar Chasima Toiva, and as some have the Nusach La'alter L'Chaim. There's a minhag on a yard site to make a siyum mesechta. As I was preparing for Rosh Hashanah, I, of course, chose Mesechta Rosh Hashanah. And I'll have the schus of being Messiah, that Mesechta in honor of the yard site in just a few moments. We know that Rosh Hashanah is also the first day of the Aseres Yemei Tshuva. They end with Yom Kippur, which Torah refers to as Shabbos, Shabbosoin, and Rosh Hashanah, the Pasuk calls also Shabbos. Our father's Petira took place on the holy day of Shabbos Shuvah. Shuvah itself is from the word Toshuv, which are the same letters as Shabbos. Thus, in essence, Shabbos and Shuvah are synonymous. Today is the 6th of Tishrei, and it would be remiss of us not to mention it's the yard site of the Rebbe's mother, Rebbe Tzimchana, who also passed on Shabbos Shuvah. But it's also the 6th day in a year that's called Shemitah. The 7th year is the year when all of land in Israel is to rest, and the Pasuk calls Shnas HaShemitah Shabbos LaHashem. Lastly, this year is distinct in its being complete. It's a full, it's a Shana Me'uberes, it's a Shana Tamima, like the Vayechulu, that Torah says that creation itself was complete when Shabbos came. So today's gathering takes place in a year of Shabbos. We're going to be Messiah Masechta Rosh Hashanah, which is called Shabbos. The pinnacle of the Aseres Yemei Tshuva is Yom HaKippurim, which is called Shabbos, Shabbosoin. And within it all, the Neshama, whom we are gathered today, returned on high on Shabbos Shuvah, Toshuv, and Shabbos being one. Some will tell you that Shabbos is simply a day to rest. Man works very hard 6 days a week. He needs a rest. So the 7th day is that day. The same is true, they say, of the land. The land works hard for 6 years and also needs to rejuvenate itself, and therefore has its day of rest or its year of rest, the 7th Shemitah. But this can't be the totality of Shabbos. Because when it was given to us as a mitzvah, first and foremost, Adam Harishon himself, he wasn't even created, never mind work or hard work of 6 days prior. He entered into the world, he entered into Shabbos. The same is with Shemitah. Shemitah, the mitzvah of Shemitah, is commanded immediately upon entering the land of Eretz Yisrael, Shabbos LaHashem. So Shabbos therefore precedes, in reality, and in time. And it impresses and makes from the mundane rote of daily life, Shabbos is Kadosh, and its Kedusha permeates the entire week. My little brother told you that the Ciment household was a very busy one. We were 8 children in our childhood home on 94 Williston Road. We called it our home because we ate and we slept there. But in reality, it was just a satellite building of the school. In that home was breathed one thing, the yeshiva. All of life circled around one and one thing only, the yeshiva. I'm not sure how many of you have directed a day school for 7 decades, but as the 7th of 8 children, I can tell you that my father's and Tibadul Chaim Toivim, my mother, their work week was 24 hours literally. Every problem, challenge, complaint, worry, and there were many, and it was every day, was brought home. Every event, every program was planned and prepared for around the dining room table. There was no such thing as downtime. It was constant, it was pressured, and it was serious business. This was our reality until Friday afternoon Lichtbench. It was as if someone had a control board somewhere that was powerful enough where they flipped the switch and almost immediately after those candles were lit, an entirely new, delightful universe became the only presence in the home. The aura, the sanctity, the menucha, it was the only presence without fail and dare not interrupt, no interruption, every single Shabbos. It was as if our Father was plugged into an entirely different dimension. It is safe to say that our Father lived for Shabbos and lived like Shabbos. Indeed, our sages, the Chachamim, tell us that Talmud Chacham Ikra Shabbos, that a Talmud Chacham is called Shabbos. His most natural state of being was on Shabbos. His entire week had one singular focus: to bring that Kedusha into every mundane material pursuit. And in thinking back and knowing how it has affected the children's lives and their homes, this Shabbos has made a lifelong, indelible, permanent impression, and to this day drives all of our passion for Shabbos in very unique and special ways. Many who knew our Father might have experienced something of an aloofness, but his was not a holier than thou arrogance. Chas v'sholom. His was the very definition of the word Kedusha. Kodesh means to be muvdal, to live a life of distinction, to separate yourself from the mundane, from the physical, from all the noise, from all the distractions. He made sure that each of us his children, knew who we are, what we represented, and that we each be instilled and live to its fullest a genuine, principled Judaic pride that is manifest in literally everything that we do. The crazy world that we live in, harried, pressured, busy, and demands that everything must be done instantly. We're taking and schlepped from every direction, places, people, and it's only getting worse. And of course, we have to thank for all of that our smartphones. They've become our lifeline. Our lives depend on our phones. So I'm asking you today, if you receive two emails from friends, and on the subject line, one says urgent, and the other says important. Which one do you open first? Urgent or important? You cheated. Our lives have become filled with urgencies, one after the other, steady stream. However silly or mundane, it has to be addressed right now. Each is urgent, each must be dealt with immediately, and at the end, we call it a day. What has been taken from us, what has been taken from our lives, where our energies are spent, we have lost the ability to focus on what is important. I do not remember our father ever rushing. He didn't rush. Perhaps once if he was late for a minyan and Beis Pinchas, he rushed, he ran. Other than that, he knew where he had to be, when he had to be there, and there was no need. I don't remember him panicking. I don't remember any drama. I don't remember any of this noise. In fact, when you were in his presence, there was a certain calmness, control. There was an equilibrium. There was peace. And it came from his core. But on things important, you can be sure that little to nothing impeded our Father from getting something important done, and in the best way possible. Of primary importance was chinuch, education. The education of Yiddish Kinderlach Jewish children. And today we can be sure that countless thousands of children have been inculcated with Yiras Shamayim, Torah values, Chassidus, directly due to him. Perhaps the Vahachai Yiten Aliboy that each of us can take from the lifetime of Rabbi Ciment is to begin focusing anew our lives on what is important and not to be so distracted and not to have one's life diminished to what is today so-called urgencies. It's for this reason that I humbly propose that Hashem scheduled the return of this neshama to its heavenly abode with a message for his children, with a message for all who knew him, that they should be fully aware, they should fully appreciate, and forever remember that his neshama was able to say, Vayechulu, in majestic fashion. He completed his journey on earth, a journey that lived, breathed, and thus ended on Shabbos. The Siyum of Rosh Hashanah deals with tefillah, with prayer. And I'm going to close with just one more short story. This happened to me, and the reason why I'm sharing it is just to give you a window into the impact that this lifelong mechanech, educator, chassid, shliach, intense pnimi, whose service of Hashem was so private and so genuine, and how these lifelong values deeply impacted those lucky enough to have tapped into it. Back in Florida, Shachris, one morning, a visitor in his late 60s, volunteers, a visitor, to lead davening. If I closed my eyes and listened to him as the chazan, I would have thought I was davening in 770 or some Lubavitcher Stiebel. The perfect enunciation of every word, and every word was said. Perfect Ivra. Even the tune used was the beautiful, classic, serious Chabad Nusach. I found it refreshing. It was music. But here's the problem. The gentleman did not look anything like Chabad. He didn't act like Chabad or remotely resemble that which I heard. So I couldn't wait until after davening to hear the rest of this story. He introduces himself as Nochem. He was a young teenager, a student at then Lubavitcher School on Bedford and Dean. He told me with a smirk he was less than a well-behaved or studious student, to say the least. The administration couldn't take it any longer, so they decided to send him to one of the sister Achei Tamimim day schools that the previous Rebbe had opened in the 40s throughout the northeast of America. One had a dorm, so it worked best, and off he went. Once there, the principal had his eye on him, and he knew it. Although strict, he says, this rabbi was also kind and patient. One day, he goes over to young Nochem, and he asks him if he knows how to daven as chazan. Nochem immediately, of course, answered, absolutely not. But the rabbi pushed him, insisted, and he began davening as chazan. This principal would stand right by his side, by the Amud, so not to embarrass him, and any mispronounced word, any ivra wrong, any word that wasn't said clearly, the principal would softly correct him. With time, Nochem began davening this way each day of the week, and he started to enjoy it. He told me that it became so frequent that the teachers, the students, started asking, why are you monopolizing the Amud? Why can't anyone else? But this principal waved them away, saying in an undertone that Nochem says he heard, leave him. I'm teaching him. I'm teaching him. Some 60 years later, in Boynton Beach, Florida, Nochem said to me, he poshet wakes up in the morning with a cheshek to daven, and especially to daven for the Amid. So when he finishes his whole story, I asked him if he remembers the name of that principal. He didn't yet know my name. And he said, sure, it was Rabbi Chaim Ciment of the Boston Lubavitch Yeshiva. This is just one of many such products produced through living the life of example as the genuine chassid, the genuine shliach, the genuine Oived Hashem, the genuine Panimi, the genuine Torah educator. This is the product of living the life of Shabbos. Accomplishing in this world what is truly important. Shabbos Shuva 1 year ago, Harav Reb Chaim ben Reb Yosef joined his neshama in saying Vayechulu. He was complete. And Hashem answered Vayenofash. Now is the time, the yahrzeit, to ascend to the world of nefesh, neshama, souls, where he will at last bask in menucha l'chaye ha'olamim forever and ever. Just to be Messiah, Rosh Hashanah. Poita hoya Rabbi Gamliel afilu am shebesodois. Rabbi Gamliel was of the opinion, lahalachav to him, to Rabbi Gamliel, that the chazan in shul can be poiter not only the people in shul, but could be yoitze even the people, the am shebesodois, those that are in the fields. Adarabba, hane anise hani loyanise. What about the people in shul? They could daven themselves. Why does he have to be poiter them? So he says it's not a question. The ones that are the amsha besodois, they have to go to work. They're forced. They don't have time to daven. They don't have time to come to shul. But the ones that come, he agrees, the ones that come to shul and do have time, they're in the city and they're by a shul, they do and should daven on their own. The Tana Abba Bereder Rabbi Yamin Bar Chia, Am Sha'achure HaKoyanim, Einam B'chlal Bracha, bringing a proof to those people that stand in back behind the Koyanim and are not facing them. They're not included in Birchas Koyanim. Alaki also Rabban Omer Rabbi Akiva Bar Idi, Omer Rab Shimon Chasida, Loipota Rabbi Gamliel, that Rabbi Gamliel, the conclusion is that Rabbi Gamliel was not poiter, Elo Am Shebesodois, only the people who are out in the fields and not the people present in shul. My taima, what's the reason? Mishum da anisi, because the people in the sodas are forced and it's not within their power to be there. Bimlocha, they have to work. Aval ba'ir, but Jews that are in the city by the shul and do have time, loy, Rabbi Gamliel says, he is not moitze them, and they must daven and prepare for davening themselves. Hadron Allah Yom Tov, the Salika Mesechta Rosh Hashanah.